What's up, everybody, to the Just in Time podcast with Justin Watkins. This is my first one of these. I don't know if I'm going to continue doing them, but I firmly believe that if you don't try something that you think you could potentially be good at, if you don't try it, you're missing out, and you'll never know if you're going to be good at it or not. The one thing that I do know is that I enjoy talking with people, and that's really what this podcast is going to be for. My main objective is truly to learn something every single time that I go through one of these. If I am open-minded and I invite people that I know that I don't 100% agree with, that's how I believe I'm going to become educated on a lot of these different things that we're going to be talking about in this podcast. For this podcast in particular, of course, it's just myself talking. We will have a couple of these. I don't know how well they're going to do. I do hope to have quite a few people on, but we'll see. My name is Justin Watkins. Who am I? My name is Justin Watkins, and I have a phenomenal and beautiful family of four. Myself, my wife, my two sons. I want to do this truly because I just want to become vulnerable. I want to open myself up. I am tired of trying to hide behind something that I am not. I built this podcast studio literally over a year ago now. I put a lot of money into it, and then I came to find out that I just didn't really know what I wanted to do with it. I started to analyze it over the past few months and better understand why I didn't want to do it. I truly believe that I didn't do it because I had the devil in my ear saying that people were going to judge me. People were going to look at me in a different form. People were going to think different of me. And I kind of grew tired of having that feeling. There have been three main things that have happened in my life in the past 6 months that really brought me to this point why I wanted to start this podcast. The first thing, of course, is I have a wife, like I said previously. I have a 3-year-old and I have a 6-month-old son. When my 6-month-old was born, when he was born, we thought everything was perfectly fine. My wife gave birth. It was perfectly healthy. The baby was perfectly fine. He did have to spend a night in the NICU, which we were not surprised by that. My first son that is 3 years old, that is completely healthy and fine, he spent 3 weeks in the NICU when he was born. So we were used to the whole NICU form. However, that next morning after he was born, nurses and doctors came in around 6 o'clock in the morning and let us know what was happening. He had some kind of a heart condition that we had no idea what happened. And this is just number one out of the 3 reasons why I decided to start this podcast. Long story short, that Tuesday, he was born on a Monday. That Tuesday morning, they came in saying, hey, we're transporting him to downtown Houston. Now, to give you a little bit of a frame of reference, downtown Houston's about an hour and a half to 2 hours north of where we currently live. My wife, of course, is recovering from childbirth and child labor. One of the most respectful things ever, and honorable things ever. I mean, watching a woman go through that really gives you a different type of respect for, what women can handle. I could never, and I respect her more than I could ever possibly respect anybody. So she gave birth on that Monday. He was transported to downtown Houston on Tuesday. And I had to have some kind of a support system for my wife. I called my family, her family. They went and supported her while I traveled down to downtown Houston. When I was in downtown Houston, we ended up finding out that he had what they call a coarctation of the aorta. Extremely fancy words for he had a kink in his aortic valve, or aortic artery, rather. So your aortic artery goes over your left shoulder. If you think of a kink in a water hose, so you have super high pressure on this side of the kink and super low pressure on this side of the kink, and that kink is really what is stopping that blood flow from getting to every other organ in your body. The surgical procedure for that, he again was born on a Monday. He had open heart surgery on Friday, and what that Friday surgery really consisted of was they took that kink of the water hose, cut it completely out, and threw it in the trash can, and then stretched the two thick ends or the wide ends out of back together and sewed it back together, right? So with all of that being said, he got out of the hospital. We were perfectly fine. He was readmitted for his second operation, which was supposed to relieve pressure from his aortic valve. And he had extreme stenosis. That's a fancy doctor word for saying that there was a narrowing and it was very pressurized. So what they did was they threw a balloon up in there, and they were going to balloon it open, relieve some of that pressure, and then pull the balloon out. Well, what had happened in that instance was he ended up having a cardiac arrest, and it required 5 to 7 minutes is what they were telling us. 5 to 7 minutes of CPR and resuscitation to get him back to a stable state. He had something go on with his arterial lines versus the procedure that he was going through, and his body just didn't handle it well, and therefore it caused the cardiac arrest resulting in CPR. That ultimately represented 2 months stay in the hospital. During the stint of being in the hospital, he had been intubated back and forth so many times during his lifespan that getting that tube stuck down your throat so many times ended up resulting in a narrowing of his airway. So now he has to have balloons put into his airway to expand those. Super long story short to say that was 2 months of our lives, and that was 1/3 of his life that he's lived thus far. During that whole process, I started to ask a lot of questions to God, and I've always been a religious person. I have, just like everybody else, have fallen off and gotten back on the bandwagon, right? But for this instance in particular, I was asking God. Never once did I ask God, why me, why my son? But I was more so asking, why do children have to suffer? Individuals that have never sinned, never done anything wrong in their life, they just want to have fun, be happy. Why do they have to suffer, right? And so that was stage one in me starting this podcast. Stage two, or reason number two, is because we came across the absolute best and most amazing family ever, and I hope to have both of them on this podcast eventually. But we met them the day that they were told that there was nothing left for their son, and they lived in the room right next to us. Their son was in the room right next to us. Whenever they were told this, it was amazing to me how they never once wavered away from their faith. They always just continuously had faith in what God had planned for them, right? It was Saturday morning, about 1:30 in the morning. We got a text message from them saying, hey, unfortunately, our son didn't make it, but I don't want you all to lose faith in what God has planned for your son. And for you to have that much strength to give that kind of encouragement to parents that are going through the same thing that you also were going through is amazing. You grow relationships in hospitals like that, extremely fast. And those are truly the only people that understand what you're going through. You get support from your family, but the people that really understand what you're feeling and what your emotions are the neighbors that are next to you in the hospital. So that was number two item that happened as to why I wanted to really start this podcast. And then number three, whether you agree with him as a person, politically, religiously, whatever. Item number three that really resulted in this podcast was the Charlie Kirk assassination, the absolutely brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk. It should have never, ever happened. But because it did happen, one of his old debates came through my feed. Everyone had all of his debates going through your feed for a week, right? And one of them in particular hit home, and it was him having a conversation with another college student, and he was going to propose to his girlfriend at the time, and he had asked Charlie, he said, hey, Charlie, I really want to propose to my girlfriend. However, she's not a believer in Christ. What do I do here? He asked, why is she not a believer? And his ultimate answer was, I don't understand why children suffer. And of course, that's the question that I've had for months now. Why are children having to suffer? And so I really tuned into that video. I'll play it, of course, because I'm not going to give him any kind of any justice to what his words are, right? But paraphrasing, Charlie's answer was, the only reason that we understand anything as being evil is because we have an absolute perfection of a God, right? And God is perfect, and therefore we have to have something with an equal and opposite reaction, which is evil. If God did not exist in this world, it would be an even playing field for everybody and for everything that goes on in life. For example, killing somebody would be equal emotional as somebody graduating high school or somebody graduating college. But because we have a God in this world and in this universe, we ultimately also have an evil at the same time. So with all three of those things happening in my personal life, I had this podcast studio already built out. It had been built out for a year and it had just been sitting. But because of that, those three things happening in that exact order, is the reason that we're having this conversation today. Had any of those happened in opposite order, I would not be sitting here today. For example, Charlie passing, had he passed before my son was admitted into the hospital, sure, I would have still seen the video, but would it have impacted me the way that it did? Absolutely not. Had this family not been in the hospital when we were, and they were already out of the hospital when we went in, would we be having this conversation? The answer would be absolutely not. So I think this podcast, I have two main things that I want to get out of this. One, of course, I want to be educated. I want to learn from people that come onto the podcast. I don't want like-minded people on this podcast, and there's a purpose behind that. I think if I invite people that I only 100% agree with, I'll never get anything out of it. Sure, I'll still have fun podcasts. Sure, I'll still have friends on and enjoy my company. But I really want to be educated. And point number 2 that I want for this podcast is to, 1, be extremely vulnerable, but 2, more importantly, be extremely unapologetic for my religion and for my faith. There's been too many times in my life where I'm sitting around a friend group that I know don't agree with me religiously, and there's a perfect opportunity for me to bring something up, and I just choose not to. And that's because I'm embarrassed, maybe, but more so, I truly think that it's the devil in my ear saying they're going to judge you if you say anything, and there's no reason for you to say anything because they're just going to argue with you anyways. And I no longer agree with that, and I will no longer allow for the devil to get into my ear. So with that all being said, I'm going to post this podcast. Again, at this point, I'm absolutely talking to nobody, and honestly, I don't anticipate to ever have an audience. The last thing that I want is to be the poster boy. I don't want to be the person that everybody looks to for advice or guidance. I want to be the realistic person that gives you the truth. I'll never sit here and say that I'm absolutely perfect. I make so many mistakes. I drink more than I should. I'm addicted to nicotine. My wife will tell you that she calls those drugs. Zen is something that I partake in. I curse every now and then. I'm not a perfect human by any means, and I never want to be the poster boy. If anybody ever looks at me as a poster boy and I start becoming that kind of person, I'm going to fail you very quickly, and I don't want to be that person. But I do want to be the person that can provide education, and I can also be the guy that is 100% truthful in myself, but also at the same time unapologetic for the religion and my faith. I am a strong Christian. I plan to only get stronger. I've been reading the Bible every single night, specifically, honestly, since Charlie Kirk passed. Charlie Kirk's assassination, again, whether you believe in his political beliefs or his religious beliefs, he was still, at the end of the day, he was a dad and he was a father. And I think that whether you believe in his politics or his religion, you can watch his videos of him being a father and you can only agree with how good of a father he was. And I hope to be that good of a person. And I say this only to say again and to reiterate my point, I am not the poster boy. I am not the person to look up to, but I am going to only give you the truth, and I'm only going to be myself. This podcast is really an outlet for me to be vulnerable and to be myself, and I don't intend on being anything else. So if you have enjoyed this video, I would love for you to stick around. I want to do these probably once a month. I think once a month is a good cadence for now. If it starts getting busy, then so be it. Let's do it. But as of today, I think once a month is perfect. And, I have no plan as to where this podcast is going to go. I've said that once. I'll say it again. I have no plan for it to be a Joe Rogan. I have no plan for it to be a Theo Vaughn. But I do plan on just being myself. And that's all that I can ask for of myself. So with that being said, at the end of each of these podcasts, I've been thinking of a slogan, been trying to think of something. I don't think we're at that point, but I will say, just be unapologetic for something. Don't apologize for something that you believe in, and don't apologize for something that you believe is right. So with that being said, guys, we're going to have a ton of fun times on this. We're going to have a ton of fun guests, a lot of cool guests that can educate all of us. But with that being said, just go out and love each other. But I'll be speaking with you guys soon. Peace, guys.